Since Israel first launched strikes on Gaza after Hamas's surprise attack on October 7th, it has targeted residential buildings. The UN says nearly 200,000 structures have been destroyed or damaged. With so many fleeing attacks, Palestinians packed into makeshift shelters, many of them UN-run schools, but they were not safe. More than 1,000 schools have been bombed. And Israel has destroyed most of Gaza's hospitals, including Al-Shifa, where more than 400 Palestinians were killed in a raid in March 2024.
We make the best weapons in the world, and we've got a lot of them. And we've given a lot to Israel, frankly. And I mean, Bibi would call me so many times, can you get me this weapon, that weapon, that weapon? Some of them I never heard of, Bibi, and I made them. But we'd get them here, wouldn't we? And they are the best. They are the best. But you used them well. It also takes people that know how to use them. And you obviously used them very well. But so many that Israel became strong and powerful, which ultimately led to peace. That's what led to peace. So as we celebrate today, let us remember how this nightmare of depravity and death all began.
In 1948, when the land of Palestine was officially stolen and given to a group of rabid Zionists who murdered over 10,000 Palestinians. This crime against humanity was decided as early as 1917 with the Balfour Declaration, the British Crown, and Lord Rothschild of the Rothschild banking dynasty, otherwise known as the Bank of England, who, when it's all said and done, will have control over hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Palestinian oil and gas reserves. As Michael Rivero famously said, all wars are bankers' wars. According to Benjamin Franklin, the primary catalyst for the American Revolution was the Bank of England's Currency Act. After the Revolution, a value-based economy, with no interest being paid to any central bank, was created. But it didn't last long. The first Bank of the United States was chartered in 1791 and favored foreign stockholders over Americans. The charter ended in January of 1811, followed by the War of 1812, and the establishment of the Second Bank of the United States in 1816, which gave more power to the Bank of England. Andrew Jackson successfully killed the bank's renewal, and shortly after, became the first U.S. president targeted for assassination when Richard Lawrence drew pistols on him outside the U.S. Capitol, but misfired. Laws were passed in the early 1860s for the U.S. government to issue its own currency in a value-based economy as opposed to the debt-based system imposed by central banks. According to an 1864 edition of the London Times, this would have made America the wealthiest nation of the world. The article warned that if a government creates its own money, it will be without debt. It will become prosperous without precedent in the history of the world, and therefore must be destroyed. In 1865, President Lincoln was assassinated, and the economy was quickly phased back to the central bank's debt enslavement model. In 1913, the tyrannical Federal Reserve Bank and federal income tax was born. The two world wars brought Germany under the heel of the central banking cartel. Western banking institutions financed the Bolshevik Revolution. In 2000, Iraq stopped selling its oil in Federal Reserve notes. In 2003, Iraq was illegally invaded by the United States, and dollar-based oil sales were reinstated. In Libya, Muammar Gaddafi's gold dinar currency was making the nation rich. In 2011, the U.S. invaded and reverted Libya's oil sales to dollars. The Bank for International Settlements recently proposed efforts under the guise of anti-money laundering that would provide scores to tokens and digital wallets, including stablecoins. Digital ID, social credit scores, and a carbon tax is what the bankers are up to now. And everything else is a distraction. Today's war is mostly psychological, and it's being waged upon you. Greg Reese reporting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. How about that Reese report? Thought that was pretty good, and yes, it definitely demonstrates where we are headed next, does it not? And note in that video report that the mention of the Bank of England and the shot there of the dragon that's on the Wales flag, the flag of Wales, and also is part of King Charles's heraldic achievement. Well, it was when he was the Prince of Wales, the Prince of Wales version of his heraldic achievement. And yes, it's a dragon with a forked tongue, and it is the same one that is on the flag of Wales. I don't think that's an accident, because he is the soon-to-be biblical Antichrist. Talk about that a lot on this channel, and thought it was pretty interesting that Mr. Reese put that in this video. Of course, he's not on that same page at all. I'm just saying it's pretty wild that he put it in there and mentioned the Bank of England and the royals and so forth. Hello and welcome, you guys. It is the Diamond Report Live, October the 19th, 2025, 10:05 p.m. This is your intrepid host, Doug Diamond. Glad to be back here again this week. Hopefully my voice will hold out a little bit better than it did last week. I just barely made it through last week's show. Just kind of the crud going on. I wasn't sick at all except for my throat just not acting right, and it's been that way sort of all week. But we will, I've got the drink prepared over here. We will see what happens tonight. Hopefully we'll be able to get through it. We've got lots to cover tonight, so hopefully that will be the case. I was saying a prayer as we started tonight. And yeah, October 19th, I wanted to give a shout out to my own mother, who is not watching the show. She's up, I think, but she is a nice 84 years old today. So thank you, Mary Lou Diamond, for everything she has done for me over the years. So anyway, hello and welcome. Glad you guys are here, and we've got live streams happening on simultaneous YouTube channels. That is the chat that you will see in the lower part of your screen over there on the far right. And then we also have Rumble as well, Rumble Live. I can't put that chat on the screen because it connects in a different way. So hello to all of the Rumblers over there and for everyone on both YouTube channels. So we're on the Diamond Disc main YouTube channel, as well as Take It to the Lord in Prayer, which is the backup channel. So let's take a look at the news. I thought I'd start with the No Kings thing, because we did mention that last week, and it did happen this weekend. And I thought these two memes that Hal Turner put up on his site were pretty apropos. Map showing every place Trump will still be president after the No Kings March. That pretty much covers it. And then, no kings, question mark. Yeah, I already did that, dumb arses, says Sir George there. So I thought that was pretty interesting and pretty funny. So yeah, I don't actually have any other articles pulled up on his site. This one here, I was looking at that earlier, but it's really brief. Iran declares no more restrictions on its nuclear program. That does not sound good. And then this one, Russia rejects the Trump suggestion to stop war where it is and go home. I thought that was maybe a joke, but no, it's serious. Trump actually did try that. So, of course, they're not going to do that. They're not going to give up all of the land that they have taken. And funnily enough, the Donbass region over in eastern Ukraine wants to be part of Russia. They want to be taken because they don't like where the Ukrainian government has them all headed. And I think we know why, because they are as corrupt as it gets. All right, the anti-Trump No Kings protests held in the U.S. this weekend in various cities, and I think it was all over the place. It was a pretty big protest, I guess, compared to what happened in, I think it was June, which was a lot smaller scale. This one this weekend was pretty large in smaller cities as well as big cities. Now, this article says demonstrators accuse the president of abusing his power and undermining democracy. And if he was actually doing that, I think we'd have a whole other situation. But of course, he's not really abusing his power and really trying to become a king. And I thought it was an interesting point that I saw someone post on a comment that said if he was actually a king, then these people would not be allowed to protest. So that right there kind of throws a wrench in the old system as far as that goes. If Trump was actually king, that wouldn't be allowed. So, pretty good point. Crowds across the U.S. took part in the No Kings protests on Saturday over Trump's policies. Rallies were held outside the Capitol in D.C. and in Times Square in New York, and in cities such as Chicago, L.A., Miami, and Austin. More than 2,700 events were planned across all 50 states, according to Axios. So maybe if you guys witnessed any of that in your area, let me know in chat what you saw. Protesters carried posters reading "No Kings, No Oligarchs," and "I pledge allegiance to no king." But that, of course, means as long as it's a Republican in charge, whether it's Trump or anyone else. If it was Obama or Biden or any of the others, you can bet they would pledge allegiance to them, as long as they're on their side. That's the way it works, isn't it? Accusing Trump of abusing his power and condemning his crackdown on illegals in his order to deploy the National Guard to several cities on the pretext of fighting crime, which, of course, that is what's going on. The president thinks his rule is absolute, but in America, we don't have kings and we won't back down against chaos, corruption, and cruelty, the organizers said on the No Kings website, which is another lie, of course. And then, this is, I guess, Times Square, it looks like, and there's a lot of people there. But given where it is, I'm not really that surprised, are you? Immigration without assimilation is invasion. Never forget that. I'll say it again. Immigration without assimilation is invasion. Period. Nation prepares for weekend No Kings protest. This is on WNG.org. Millions of demonstrators nationwide are expected. I think it actually was millions. They were reporting millions, although there's no way to really know, but I think 7 million was the number that I heard across the entire nation, which is a very small percentage of the U.S. population, given the fact that the overwhelming majority of many millions of people voted Trump into office, so the 7 million really isn't a very big number, if you think about it. Millions of demonstrators nationwide are expected to protest Trump and his administration on Saturday during a planned No Kings Day. The website of No Kings, a coordinating group, showed a map with hundreds of markers across the country representing individual planned demonstrations. The group held a previous No Kings rally on June 14th, Trump's birthday, claiming his administration was wrongfully deporting Americans, violating due process, and attacking basic civil rights. They're not deporting Americans, they're deporting illegals who are not Americans. So, just to clarify, the group claims the Trump administration has doubled down on authoritarianism by sending masked agents into the streets to terrorize communities and illegally detain people, which of course is not actually what's happening. They're masked to prevent their identities from being known because these agitators and protesters are doxing them and putting their family and their information out on the internet. That's why they're masked. It's to protect them and their families. The No Kings demonstrations intend to help unite citizens against dictatorship, according to the group's website. All No Kings events are nonviolent, so they say, and participants are expected to de-escalate any possible confrontation, so they say, with those who disagree with the peaceful demonstration, the group says. Weapons of any kind are not welcome at any No Kings event, say the coordinators. Yes, again, so they say. And I would also add Charlie Kirk is no longer with us anymore, is he? From the same group of people, at least theoretically. That's who's being blamed. So, yes, that is a WNG.org article. Another one that I came across, thought I would mention it. No Kings, No Secrets, Dark Money Behind America's Grassroots Protests. I thought this was kind of interesting just to see all the numbers. Total funds sent to No Kings, 2 partners. The funding network and the sum of the amount. Arabella was upwards of $80 million. Buffett, another almost $17 million. Ford, about $52 million. Rockefeller, about $29 million. George Soros, about $72 million. And the Tides Foundation, about almost $46 million. So, almost $295 million. I think they have some pretty big backing, and gee, isn't it being backed by billionaires? And that's the kings that they're talking about. So, Little ironic there, I think, isn't it? It's being backed by billionaires who they're calling kings in the No Kings protest. So that just goes to show you that the people on the ground are literally just sheep. I mean, they're just being told what to do, and these rich people are making them do it, or paying them to do it in many cases. And there's a lot of paid protesters, and I noticed several people reporting that after 2 hours of protesting, the protests in some areas disbanded and everybody went home, like everybody was on the payroll, and their time clock got cut off after 2 hours. Just an interesting observation that I've heard some people mention. So, No Kings protesters reveal what their movement is really about. So you can see this crazy person here. I think that's a woman. Let's see here. Beautiful and gentle autumn day in D.C. was turned to ugly Saturday by the piercing screams and vile signs of No Kings protest. The second round of the No Kings protest turned out to be a hate-filled and unpatriotic parade where attendees could freely let out their vitriol for the president while openly calling for the death of their political opponents, whom they deemed comparable to who? Their favorite person, Hitler. Because to them, no one could possibly be worse, and they don't know any other bad guys other than Hitler, so they have to use his name. And here I thought after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Democrats believed, as former Vice President Kamala Harris wrote on X, that, quote, political violence has no place in America, end quote. She did say that. Here are some of the most, let's say, interesting signs. So you can see some of these. Antifa equals anti-fascist, fascist equals Nazi, Nazi equals bad, get it now. No, I don't really get it. Anyway, there's quite a few here, and you guys are welcome to check some of these out. And, oh, look, here's another person who doesn't understand what 8647 means, just like Comey. And then we have the plushie squad, I guess. They're out there protesting, holding Epstein signs. So anyway, that's just a few examples of some of what was going on today, and I guess mostly yesterday, actually. I think it was officially Saturday. And then Soros-funded No Kings protest demand end to private schools nationwide. How about that? I thought that was interesting and wanted to pull it up and see what this article was all about. America has no king. Yeah, but they were having No Kings protests in Canada, too. I think they weren't calling it that. They were calling it No Tyrants because officially Canada does have a king, and that would be King Charles III. Okay, so they're having no tyrants in Canada. But, of course, the entire government of Canada is tyrannical. But they just ignore that because they'd rather just go protest Trump. Nationwide demonstrations branded as the No Kings protests are set to take place across the U.S. on Saturday, featuring chants and slogans that call for abolishing private schools, guaranteeing universal housing, and advancing other left-wing policy goals. So no more private schools, they say. Organizers of the protests have circulated a songs and chants sheet online, including the themes and messages that participants are expected to chant during marches in cities, including D.C., New York, and Portland. So they gave them the script, even, on the chants. So none of this can possibly be let go as organic and allowed to develop. It has to be managed and micromanaged and controlled. And that's the way the left operates, isn't it? Everything has to be micromanaged and controlled. I'm looking to see what else they say here about private schools. One of the chants list reads, education is a right. That's why today we stand and fight. Privatization has got to go. Because they want everyone in a government-run school and no one paying for school privately or doing homeschooling, because if we had that, you might have people who weren't necessarily interested in the official narrative, right? So, of course, they want everyone in a government school. All right, that's a LifeZet article. And then let's move on, talk about some other things. I put all the No King stuff together just so we can kind of cover it and get it out of the way, mostly. Okay, Candace Owens' investigation of Charlie's murder update. Now, she's been off, I think, for the last week or 10 days or something. So I'm not sure how new this is. So let's take a look here. The update on the investigation by Candace and others into the assassination of Charlie includes a meeting in the Hamptons hosted by Bill Ackman back in August when Kirk was reportedly pressured and yelled at about his change in support for Israel. 2 days before he was shot on September 10th, he wrote that he would not be bullied and added that it was, quote, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause, end quote. Candace said that the day before Charlie's campus event at UVU, he told several people that they were going to kill him. So that's pretty interesting. There's a little bit more here on this article, including some embedded tweets. This one I thought was kind of interesting. Breaking, journalist Max Blumenthal questioned businessman and investor Robert Shillman on why he cut off funding from Charlie Kirk before his death. Shillman, also known for funding Laura Loomer, hung up the phone when questioned. This is him right here. This is Max. So, anyway, and then here's the tweets, or the, not tweets, but the texts that we mentioned last week. So, more information on this article, should you want to investigate it a little further. Seems to be pretty much stuff we already know for the most part, but that is on needtoknow.news. Good site, G. Edward Griffin's site. And then this one is also on here. I thought this one was an interesting thing that popped up. Now, this was not discovered by Candace, but it was discovered on a couple other channels that were pretty big ones this week. And I guess I first heard about it through Harrison's show on InfoWars, but this is really interesting turn of events in a way, I guess. James Lee, the Kirk shooting, they knew it before it happened, ? So we won't watch the video just because it's fairly long, but I will link to this directly in the Substack post that I send out on Tuesday. So make sure you're on that list, or you can, of course, go find the video on your own and watch this, but it's only 10 or 11 minutes. It's not too long, although it's too long for us tonight to play. This is pretty interesting. James Lee uncovers the disturbing pattern of Google searches made in Washington, D.C. before Charlie Kirk's assassination, digging into the digital breadcrumbs first exposed by Baron Coleman, which is Real Baron Podcast. I guess that's his Twitter handle. That's his YouTube handle, I guess. That suggests someone had foreknowledge of accused killer Tyler James Robinson's name, weapon, and location long before a single shot was fired. James Lee uncovers a disturbing pattern of Google searches made in D.C. Now, it doesn't mention Israel, but that's the other part of the story here. These Google searches were made in D.C. and in Israel, looking at certain things like a Google search on Tyler Robinson's name or on the type of gun that was supposedly used or the rooftop of the building that it was supposed to have happened from on that campus. So there were Google searches in the D.C. area and in Israel a few days before the actual assassination. Now, since that's happened, since that was discovered, a lot of that information has been expunged from the Google search results. So you don't necessarily get that information if you go search it now. But this guy here is simply reporting on what was found. He's not the guy that found it. But it is pretty interesting, and I thought that was something worth mentioning because there are several different search results, including those things I mentioned, plus the hospital where they took Charlie, and I think the surgeon's name was the other thing. So this person who did this search result research looked for a bunch of different things, and he got search result hits on several things that all happened before Charlie was killed. And yet, people were searching these things before the event happened, so they knew it was going to happen. And of course, we know that there were people online in Reddit groups and so forth that were talking about something bad's going to happen tomorrow or whatever. Something, I guess they were saying something really great's going to happen tomorrow. And so people knew it was going to happen. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And it to me, it's telltale sign that it's people in D.C. that were looking for this and people in Israel. So can't really get past those little details, huh? EPA Chief Lee Zeldin uncovers billions in payoffs to Biden activists and Democrat donors. Solar companies and some labor unions are suing the EPA, I call the Environmental Pollution Agency, because it canceled billions in grants under the $27 billion greenhouse gas reduction fund that was passed under Biden in 2022. However, EPA Chief Zeldin said the money went through multiple pass-throughs, like they always do, and was funding activists, environmental NGOs, former Biden and Obama officials, and Democrat donors. It has now been defunded. I'm glad they defunded it. The budget for the EPA is now $10 billion, nearly one-third of the budget under the Biden regime. Yet, no one is in prison. Other Biden spending bills have also been cut. Earlier this year, it was revealed that the Department of Energy handed out a staggering $93 billion in loans and commitments during the final 76 days of Biden, a figure that more than doubled the loan total from the previous 15 years combined. Per the U.S. Department of Energy's website, its loans program office provides, quote, clean energy and advanced transportation technologies with access to needed loans and loan guarantees when private lenders cannot or will not, end quote. As of August 2022, the LPO, Loan Programs Office, had loaned out only $32.7 billion, but Biden-era spending bills supercharged the office, increasing its loan authority to $400 billion. Of that total, $290 billion would expire in September 2026, with another $50 billion expiring in 2028. So yeah, I'm wondering on these loans, I wonder if it's loans in quotes. I wonder if it's just grants and they're calling them loans. Free money. That's what it sounds like to me. Anyway, yeah. I've not personally been real happy with a lot of the stuff that Zeldin has done with regard to geoengineering, talking about that. And we've mentioned that on the show before, but I think this is good if they can kind of stop some of this this bleeding as far as the money flowing out. So I think that's good news. All right, and then need to know.news, one more article, 8th anniversary, Route 91, or some people say Route 91, uncovering the cover-up in the Las Vegas shooting documentary. Can you believe it's been 8 years since the Vegas shooting? October 1st, 2017. It's hard to believe. 58 people reportedly died and more were injured. Mindy Robinson, an actress and activist who lives in Vegas, assembled news clips, interviews, and other videos showing the mass cover-up of the shooting that was quickly memory-holed as the official narrative unraveled. And that it was. She dispelled the notion of a lone gunman and provided evidence of multiple shooters, gunmen on the ground, shooting into the crowds, gunshots fired from multiple casinos, and 2 suspicious helicopters near the Mandalay Bay Hotel. She gave examples of government-sponsored murders. In addition, she presents evidence that the narrative around Stephen Paddock, the alleged lone gunman, who is said to have committed suicide, is another cover-up. Sheriff Joe Lombardo, who botched the investigation and timeline, became the governor of Nevada in 2023. He is a Republican. It is also interesting to note that in 2017, John Pelletier, I guess is how you say it, was a Las Vegas police captain at the time of the shooting. He later, if you remember, became the Maui police chief and assisted in the catastrophic fires there in 2023. But it was a coincidence. No need to look any further. Clearly, they must have something on him for them to move him around and put him in these key places where there's going to be major controversy, major stories happen like this. So one thing that is mentioned in this article, linked to, I should say, is a BitChute version of this video that they're talking about that was just recently produced. So this is something that you can certainly take a look at. I'm going to watch it myself. I have not yet. It's called Route 91, Uncovering the Cover-Up of the Vegas Mass Shooting. So there it is. And we'll link to this BitChute video. Of course, you guys can search it yourself, but we'll put that in the Substack post that I send out on Tuesday. Most humbling thing I've ever seen, Western business leaders terrified after touring Chinese factories. So that kind of caught my attention because I'm like, okay, why would they be terrified? Well, automated factories in China are assembling cars and cell phones with robots instead of humans. Ford Motor Company's CEO Jim Farley and other top business leaders are terrified over China's breakneck technological advancements, warning that the Asian superpower's innovations could crush American companies if they don't act fast. Venture capitalist Mr. Kolsa, an early OpenAI backer, predicts that there's a robotics breakthrough akin to ChatGPT within 2 to 3 years, envisioning robots that can chop vegetables and wash dishes. Over 1 billion humanoids could be in use by 2050, with 90% industrial and commercial roles. So there's a couple embedded videos and a little bit more information here too, if you want to take a look. But I thought that was pretty interesting. And they're saying that factories in China are already fully automated, building cell phones and cars. So, and imagine, all of the people power China has. And yet they're opting to just use robots. So all those people that were working are no longer working. Pretty wild, huh? That's on needtoknow.news. All right. 3 most recent articles on technocracy.news. Usually mention these. On the backs of digital slaves, Musk, other Trump-era tech elites building global digital control grid. This is something we've been harping on a lot just because this seems to me to be where everything's going. And of course, from a timing standpoint, being how we are in the end times, if you ask me anyway, this makes a lot of sense. All right, it says the third Omniwar Symposium has cemented the study group on technology and power a place in history. This international group of academics is the first to expose technocracy as a global threat. As nation after nation is captured by arch technocrats and technocracy, it is painfully obvious that they have their sights set on the whole world. This symposium's topic is the digital attack on humanity. All right, and then the next article is International Judicial Authority declares mRNA injections are biological and technological weapons of mass destruction. Reiner Fulmick, and we've mentioned him on the show before, Reiner Fulmick is venerated for starting this process before he was kidnapped by German authorities and thrown in jail on October 14th, 2023. So no one's heard much from Reiner since then. Convicted on trumped-up charges and sentenced to 3 years and 9 months in prison, Reiner and I, which would be the person that wrote this story, I think that's probably Patrick Wood, most likely, participated in the 9-city Crimes Against Humanity tour in 2022. Now you see why Germany feared and hated him. Yeah, and I do know Patrick was involved in that tour. And Patrick's a good guy. He's the guy that heads up this website. He's been a guest 2 or 3 times on Lost Arts Radio, which is a show that I produce. So I've talked to him more than once. This website's a really good one if you want to know more about what technocracy is and how fast it is coming towards us. Free speech ? Journalists turn in their access badges and exit Pentagon rather than agree to new reporting rules. For all the rhetoric to the contrary, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has abandoned free speech in the First Amendment by running off reporters from the Pentagon. Now, this is what this article says. I'm going to disagree with this. Hegseth is a Christian nationalist and believes in Christian dominionism, which is a form of theocratic ideology that pushes Christian dominance over all spheres of public life. President Trump believes Hegseth is correct to muzzle the press because the press is very dishonest, quote unquote. And that's true. No, that is not why these people were exiting the Pentagon. That's not the whole story. Part of what happened here was that Hegseth wanted to introduce new security features, and these reporters did not want to take part in the new security features. So they could have stayed. They just didn't agree to doing the new security features that Hegseth wanted to do to secure things at the Pentagon, because the Pentagon leaks like a sieve. The Pentagon is constantly having leaks. And some of that is from people in the press who have just wild access, running up and down the hallway. They can literally go in anywhere they want. And without that total access to everything, that is what Hegseth is trying to lock down, which makes sense to me. So trying to lock that down, these people say no and walk out, and it makes it look like that it's Hegseth's fault for cracking down on free speech. That's not what's going on. So anyway, I would totally disagree with that particular article, the way it is set up here, but you're welcome to have a look at this. It's on technocracy.news. All right, and then a couple of articles on the Liberty Beacon. Billionaire-funded No Kings Revolution turns into liberal boomer parade. And this is kind of an interesting, I didn't mention this already, but when talking about the No Kings thing, this is an interesting little, I guess, detail that has cropped up here, and that is pretty much everybody protesting are older people and like 99% white, pretty much all white people. The Democrat Party's dark money NGO network, bankrolled by left-wing billionaires, which we went through that funding just a minute ago, unleashed a highly coordinated color revolution-style mobilization nationwide on Saturday. The same tactics U.S. intelligence agencies have used overseas for years in regime change operations. Yet the turnout wasn't dominated by unhinged young leftists or gender-confused woke warriors. There were some of those. But rather by white baby boomer liberals, a mobilization effort that NGO expert Mike Benz described as a coup de flat. Coup de flat. Thought that was kind of interesting. Anyway, yeah, don't make me tap the sign. They don't want no kings. They want their kings, which is what I said earlier, effectively. Yeah, that's exactly right. They would be totally happy with another Biden or another Obama or Hillary Clinton in there. It's exactly what I said. They would be totally fine with that. They wouldn't call that person a king. It's just because it's Donald Trump, and it's just because it's a Republican. They don't want no kings. They want their king. I think that's exactly right. So that one's on the Liberty Beacon. And then one of the big stories this week, John Bolton indicted on 18 counts over mishandling classified documents. So we were talking about this last week, that this was one of them that was coming. Jack Smith's another one, supposedly, that's coming very soon. We'll see. CNN's Caitlin Collins reports that in the first reaction to his indictment, John Bolton conjures images of himself as a true American hero, and Trump is Stalin. Anyway, you guys probably already know what's going on with Bolton, but yeah, he's got some quotes here on what he talked about. But one of the funniest headlines, I should have looked it up, but one of the funniest headlines that I saw that was an image of, it was like something like the Sun. It might not have been the Sun, but one of those sort of rag type magazines, because Bolton was caught using an unsecure AOL email account, right? AOL, as in America Online, kind of shows you how much his technological expertise might be. He was sending attachments of top secret documents through AOL, right? Well, anyway, this headline I saw had a picture of Bolton, and it said, instead of, you guys remember the old email line that people would hear when they would check their email, would say, "You've got mail." Well, this one says, "You've got jail," and it had a picture of Bolton. I thought that was pretty funny. We don't know that he'll actually go to jail. Chances are, probably he won't, but that would be nice, just because some of these people need to pay for their crimes, and I think many people would agree with that. All right, and then speaking of crimes, Prince Andrew loses all of his royal titles after the Jeffrey Epstein fallout. And, you know, we've talked about this a little bit on this show. Prince Andrew will no longer have any of his royal titles, according to the Duke of York. The royal family confirmed on Friday, October 17th. He says, "In a discussion with the king and my immediate and wider family, we have concluded the continued accusations about me distract from the work of His Majesty and the royal family," meaning the soon-to-be Antichrist. "I have decided, as I always have, to put my duty to my family and country first." Like, yeah, when you were raping and screwing little kids, that's what you mean? I stand by my decision 5 years ago to stand back from public life, he says. So anyway, he's been stripped of his titles. I would say that he wasn't given a choice, is my guess. But yeah, we'll have another little clip on this in a little bit. But thought that was pretty interesting that that's what's happening with Prince Andrew, and it couldn't happen to a nicer guy, could it? And I came across this one being in the entertainment industry as I am. I thought this was pretty interesting, and you guys might like to know about this as well. Get woke, go broke. Hollywood productions plummet to all-time lows. Film and TV production in the Los Angeles area has hit an all-time low, sinking to levels worse than the SAG union strike of 2023. SAG, if you don't know, is the Screen Actors Guild. The city has introduced new tax incentives to generate enthusiasm, but many in Tinseltown are questioning if the industry will ever recover. Well, part of that is just the economy that Gavin Newsom has built in California. People are leaving there in droves, as we've talked about many times. You know, he was the U-Haul Salesman of the Year last year. Film LA, the city and county's film permitting office, said Tuesday that on-location production in the greater LA area has declined 13.2% from July through September 2025 compared to the same period last year. So that's just a few months this year. It's declined over 13%. Wow. So that's going to be a lot of people, I'm thinking, a lot of people in the services industry and people that work on films who are going to be out of work. So that's bad news for them. But man, that's, I don't know. People don't want their crap that they're putting out, do they? It says, once again, this continues a multi-year trend in declining local production. You know, part of it is people are watching things that are being created on no-budget type situations or very, very low-budget situations. And I work on some projects like that, being involved in the music business. So, you know, whether as a music supervisor or as an engineer, that is something that I'm involved in and know a little bit about. So it's just changing. And Hollywood, like the music business, Hollywood is not adjusting to the changes in technology. They can't keep up. And the music business has been the exact same way. And anybody else out there listening who happens to be in the music business, you understand what I'm saying. So anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting. That's a Zero Hedge article. And I came across this one and just thought I'd mention it just because it is absolutely no surprise. You guys remember Chris Christie, right? Well, an ex-Chris Christie staffer gets 10 years in prison for sex with a 6-year-old. This guy, 43-year-old Kevin Tomavsky. How about that? But it's even worse. I mean, that's bad enough, but it gets worse. A former aide to New Jersey Governor Chris Christie was sentenced to 10 years in prison for engaging in a sexual act with a 6-year-old child. Kevin, 43, pictured here, admitted to paying the victim's father, who is also under indictment. So he paid off the father. The New Jersey Globe is withholding the other defendant's name to protect the victim's privacy. The former governor's office staffer pleaded guilty to first-degree endangering the welfare of a child. Tomavsky, a Washington Township resident, must serve at least 5 years before becoming eligible for parole and will spend the remainder of his life on the Megan's Law list of sex offenders. So it goes on. There's more details here. But isn't that sick? And he fits the Democrat profile, doesn't he? Pedophiles. They're pedophiles. Many of them. Not all of them, but many of them are. And this guy worked right there, right next to Chris Christie. But I'm sure it's a coincidence. Middle East, Israel returns to ceasefire after Gaza strikes. So they got the hostages back, and they returned to shelling people in Gaza. I'm looking to see if I pulled up. I don't think I pulled up an actual article on that on DW, but we do have that on some other tabs. So hold tight. We will get to that. John Bolton makes first appearance in court. Some of the information was exposed when operatives believed to be linked to the Iranian government hacked Bolton's email account. Yes, that's the AOL email account. You've got mail or you've got jail. Bolton arrived at a federal courthouse Friday to surrender to authorities on charges accusing the former Trump administration national security advisor turned critic of the president of emailing classified information to family members and keeping top secret documents at his Maryland home. Bolton did not comment to reporters as he entered the courthouse in Maryland, where he is expected to make an initial appearance before a judge on the 18-count indictment brought against him on Thursday. So we'll see if it goes anywhere. I'm not holding my breath. I'm sure you're not either. But at least they're trying to hold some of these people accountable. We will see. We will see. That's a Headline USA article. Top articles that I will mention, and you guys can pull them up if you want. InformationLiberation.com. Trump endorses prospective Massey challenger Ed Galrein, even though he's yet to enter the race. This name, Gallrein, doesn't sound like a normal Kentuckian to me. I think you know what I mean. President Trump, who is working in cahoots with Israel First billionaires to oust beloved Kentucky rep Thomas Massey, endorsed Ed Galrein on Friday to take on Massey, even though he hasn't even entered the race. Yes, but he does have the right last name, doesn't he? Greta Thunberg details sadistic torture at hands of Israeli captors. And while I wouldn't trust the IDF, I certainly do not trust Greta Thunberg either. So who knows who is lying here? But it is an interesting idea. Greta Thunberg, who initially stayed silent about her treatment under Israeli detention in order to censor the plight of the Palestinians, now has revealed in the wake of Trump's Gaza deal how she was sadistically tortured by her Israeli jailers. And she might have been. I have no idea. But it is interesting that this is coming out. Promises made, promises kept to Israel. President Trump gave a speech before the Knesset on Monday. We saw a clip of it in the opening video tonight, touting his subservience to the Jewish state and praising the influence of Israel First GOP megadonor Miriam Adelson and her late husband Sheldon. All right. China accuses U.S. of major cyber attack. U.S. National Security Agency hacked China's National Time Service Center over several years. China has accused the U.S. National Security Agency of waging a major multi-year cyber attack on the Chinese agency responsible for keeping national time. What in the world? In a statement posted on its official social media account on Sunday, the Ministry of State Security said it had obtained irrefutable evidence that the NSA infiltrated the National Time Service Center. The covert operation allegedly began in March 2022, aiming to steal state secrets and conduct acts of cyber sabotage. So they're going to mess up their clocks. That's real evil. Maybe that's all they could actually do. Maybe that was the extent of their cyber capabilities. I don't know. Mess up people's clocks. The service center, I'm sure it's worse than that, but that's on the surface, that's kind of what it seems like. We're going to mess up your clocks. Well, daylight savings does that, so. The center serves as China's official time authority, issuing the broadcasting Beijing time to key sectors, including finance, energy, transport, and defense. A disruption to this critical piece of infrastructure could have caused widespread instability in financial markets, logistics, and power supply, according to the MMS, which is the Ministry of State Security. So there you go. If you mess up the time clocks, I guess it does mess up the financial markets, logistics, and power supply across the country. So I could see where that would be bad. Not just daylight savings. Messing with them. Anyway, I don't even know that China observes daylight savings. But that was an RT article. And then this one too. Trump-Zelensky meeting was, quote, bad, according to Axios. The Ukrainian leader left Washington without promises on Tomahawk missiles, the outlet's sources say. I think that's good news, don't you? So no Tomahawks for old Zelensky. I think that's good news. So that is another RT article here, and we'll look at that just a little closer. Israel strikes Gaza. Attacks were carried out in Rafah in response to alleged violations of the ceasefire. Of course, the IDF on Sunday said it carried out large-scale strikes against Hamas targets in Rafah in southern Gaza following alleged violations of the ceasefire reached earlier this month. According to the IDF, militants on Sunday fired an anti-tank missile and gunfire towards troops operating to dismantle terrorist infrastructure, quote-unquote, in the area in accordance with the ceasefire agreement. Israeli troops responded with several airstrikes on what it called terror targets, which that would be everything from babies to young women to older women. That's a terror target to the IDF. So anyway, there's more reasoning here and more excuse that IDF has on why they restarted the strikes on Gaza. I think everybody pretty much knew they were going to do that. Israel strikes dozens of terror targets in Gaza. IDF has called the action a response to what it claims were ceasefire violations by Hamas. Yeah, so they're blaming Hamas. It's their fault. So there's another article, further information on this RT story as well. Now, this one was kind of a bigger story. I guess happened today. The Louvre was robbed. The iconic French art museum was closed after criminals reportedly stole several pieces of Napoleon-linked jewelry. So here's the entrance here, and then it says the Louvre Museum in Paris has been closed for the day after a robbery on Sunday. Officials have said unconfirmed media reports claim that several criminals stole 9 pieces from the Napoleonic jewelry collection. I wonder how they knew to get that particular thing. The incident was reported by French culture minister, who said on X that a robbery took place this morning at the opening of the Louvre Museum. She added that there are no reports of injuries and that police investigation is underway. The museum itself said that it will remain closed for the day due to exceptional reasons. Yes, they were robbed. So Napoleon jewelry, Napoleon jewels. Let's see what this is. Crown of Empress Eugenie. Thieves reportedly stole 9 pieces from the jewelry collection of Napoleon and the Empress, including a necklace, a brooch, a tiara, and several other items, according to the paper. However, the 140-carat Regent diamond, no relation to me, estimated to be worth more than $60 million, reportedly remained in place. So they didn't grab the Regent diamond. Maybe they didn't really know what they were doing. Le Parisien said that one of the stolen items, which appears to be a broken crown of Empress Eugenie, the spouse of Napoleon III, was found outside the museum. So they must have dropped it on the way out. Interior Minister told reporters that the heist took only 7 minutes, meaning the criminals had been clearly scouting. Yes, and it's worse than that. It's not like they just walked in and stole it. No, they had a ladder truck somehow that they had gotten access to. Jewel thieves knocked over the most famous museum on earth in broad daylight, so just in broad daylight today, in a daring robbery that took less than 10 minutes. In just 7 minutes, thieves allegedly mounted a ladder, stole priceless jewels from the Louvre, and fled on motor scooters. So you can see they had a truck with a ladder and literally just climbed up the ladder and broke in. They had, some people were saying chainsaws. I think they were glass cutters or disc cutters. The culprits stole jewels of an inestimable value from an area that houses the French crown jewels before fleeing the scene on motor scooters. So they had those ready to go. Sounds like a B movie or something here. I don't know. He added that 3 or 4 thieves were involved. It was manifestly a team that had done scouting. And then they had broken an exterior window with a disc cutter. The stolen jewels had been kept behind glass inside the gallery. So there's an article here on Not the Bee. I wanted to show you guys that it was a ladder truck that they had. Isn't that crazy? And And then this is the Gateway Pundit's version of the story. And then this is an RT article that's got a small little short clip, 2 seconds, of the actual heist happening. So apparently they were videoing themselves as they were doing it. So they must have had plenty of time. 7 whole minutes. But this is only 2 seconds. I'm not sure what we'll see here, but let's look. You can see them kind of... Well, I don't know exactly. It looks like they're either cutting a hole or breaking the glass. 2 second little clip being looped. Culture Ministry said 8 artifacts were stolen, including necklace Napoleon gave his wife. Okay. I'm looking to see what this clip is. A video circulated on social media shows thieves breaking into the Louvre and stealing the French crown jewels in broad daylight. In a short cell phone video, a person wearing a bright yellow vest can be seen tampering with the display case. So that's what this is. So I thought that was kind of strange, and it is wild that, at least in my opinion, it's a little strange that we just had a No Kings protest, at least in this country, and it was the French crown jewels that were stolen from the Louvre. So I wonder what's going on, and could that possibly be connected somehow? I'm not saying it was people that were involved in No Kings. I'm just saying, why the same weekend did that happen? I just thought that was really strange. We have No Kings, and we have the Louvre broken into, and stuff from the French crown being taken. Very strange. Yeah, and then, so there's a few articles on the whole Louvre situation. This one I wanted to mention just because this keeps coming up. 3I Atlas comet hurtling toward the solar system, much bigger than previously thought, astronomers say. Well, what do you know? A comet named 3I Atlas likely weighs more than 33 billion tons. There's that number. 33 billion tons. Harvard Jewish astrophysicist Avi Loeb said in a blog post on Thursday. He was the one that discovered this, by the way. So, this is the ABC News piece here. 3I Atlas comet hurtling toward solar system, much bigger than previously thought. Yeah, and it weighs more than 33 billion tons, because we can tell that from how far away it is and from how far away we are, and barely being able to see it. We can tell how much it weighs. Yeah, but it wasn't 32 billion tons. No, it wasn't 34 billion tons. It's 33 billion tons. So that kind of put me on the trajectory of, okay, why do we keep seeing all these 33s? What's with the 33s? Is it a message? I've heard that it's a message. When you see stuff being reported on, and 33 is the number in the headline, or 33 is the main number in the article, 33 people killed, and this or that, or 33 this, 33 that, maybe 33 people got shot, or whatever it is. You always see 33s. And so I asked ChatGPT, just trying to figure out what in the world's going on here. And it said, that's a really interesting question, Doug. And it's one that people have been noticing and talking about for years. Here's the breakdown. So this is just what ChatGPT says. So take it or leave it. I just thought it was interesting. I wanted to see if it came up with some stuff that I had never heard, and indeed it did. Why 33 shows up so often? There are a few ordinary reasons the number 33 appears frequently in news reports. So this is interesting, and I didn't know this, and it does make sense. The first one I don't necessarily agree with. Statistical coincidence. Round numbers 10, 20, 25, 30, 33, 40, 50, etc. tend to appear because they sound tidy or memorable in headlines. Editors pick numbers that read well. So, you can kind of see where that's going. Common use in data. Ages. A 33-year-old man counts 33 people are injured. Or geographical data like 33rd district or 33 miles are naturally occurring. So the number genuinely comes up. And that's true. It can. But it comes up an awful lot, doesn't it? Symbolic roundness. Some journalists subconsciously choose 33 as a stand-in for a few dozen or several because it sounds precise yet dramatic. A stylistic habit more than a code. So they're saying that it's possible that the 33s could be used because some journalists think that it's a good stand-in for a few dozen. 33. They just make up a number, in other words. Okay, so that is section 1 here. Section 2 says symbolic or esoteric interpretations. This kind of gets into the stuff that I was thinking. That said, the number 33 also carries symbolic weight in several traditions. In Freemasonry, 33 is the highest degree of initiation, Scottish Rite, which makes it a focal point for conspiracy speculation. That's what I'd always heard. In Christian numerology, 33 is the age of Christ at his crucifixion and resurrection, representing sacrifice, completion, or divine purpose. So you have that, and that is thought to be true. Personally, I don't think that that is true, but we'll come back to that. In occult and esoteric circles, 33 can symbolize enlightenment or spiritual mastery. Because of these associations, some viewers interpret repeated uses of 33 in the media as a signal or a marker, possibly a wink to insiders or a way to symbolically encode meaning. See, that's kind of what I've always thought. So, is it a message? There's no verified evidence that major media outlets coordinate and insert 33 as a hidden message. What's more likely, journalists unconsciously repeat catchy or dramatic numbers. Audiences who are alert to patterns notice 33 more often, a psychological phenomenon called selective attention, or apopenia, I guess. Symbolic interpretation spread online, reinforcing the idea that it is deliberate. I've seen that for sure. However, in some fringe or independent circles, certain producers or writers do occasionally use the number intentionally as a cultural wink or symbolic flourish, knowing that a segment of viewers will pick up on it, a kind of meta commentary or inside joke. If you're seeing 33 repeatedly in mainstream outlets, you're not imagining a pattern, but the meaning can range from coincidence to subtle cultural signaling depending on context. So that's what ChatGPT said about the use of 33. And, you know, we do see it all the time in articles about stuff. I just read one with the 3-eye atlas headed this way. All right, I would disagree with this, though. In Christian numerology, 33 is the age of Christ at his crucifixion and resurrection, representing sacrifice, completion, or divine purpose. That's true. It would mean that. However, there is evidence to say that he was not 33. We just don't know. And one thing that we can point at is Scripture itself. And I pulled up just this one verse from John 8. So tell me if you've ever heard this before. So this is, I'll backtrack just a little bit here. Before Abraham was born, I am, is the name of this section. So this is, again, John 8, right? The Jews answered him, "Are we not right to say that you are a Samaritan and you have a demon?" "I do not have a demon," Jesus replied, "but I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. I do not seek my own glory. There is one who seeks it, and he is the judge. Truly I tell you, truly I tell you, if anyone keeps my word, he will never see death." "Now we know that you have a demon," declared the Jews. "Abraham died, and so did the prophets. Yet you say that anyone who keeps your word will never taste death. Are you greater than our father Abraham? He died, as did the prophets. Who do you claim to be?" Jesus answered, "If I glorify myself, my glory means nothing. The one who glorifies me is my Father, of whom you say he is our God. You do not know him, but I know him. If I said I did not know him, I would be a liar like you. But I do know him, and I keep his word. Your father Abraham rejoiced, and he would see my day. He saw it and was glad." Now here's the part I wanted you to listen to. "Then the Jews said to him, 'You are not yet 50 years old, and you have seen Abraham?' 'Truly, I tell you,' Jesus declared, 'before Abraham was born, I am.' At this, they picked up stones to throw at him, but Jesus was hidden and went out of the temple area." So note that line right there. Verse 57. The Jews said to him, "You are not yet 50 years old." So they know how old he is. If he was around 32 or 33 when this happened, wouldn't they say, "You are not yet 40 years old"? So he must have been older than we thought. Which leads me to, one of the videos I made for the End Times Dates series, which I will republish on the Diamond Disc channel that had been disappeared for so many years. It is on the Take It to the Lord in Prayer channel. I made a video a few years ago talking about how Jesus' ministry was not 3.5 years. It was 70 weeks. And we go through the Michael Rood timeline. Michael Rood spent 40 years of his life synchronizing the Gospels in chronological order and proved that Jesus' ministry was not 3.5 years, it was 70 weeks. And therefore, the age that we're told that Jesus was at crucifixion is probably not correct. And this verse in John 8, to me, backs that up. You are not yet 50 years old, and you have seen Abraham. So, was Jesus potentially already in his 40s? We don't know. But I do think it's very interesting, and this whole thing with ChatGPT and the Christian numerology and leading back to 3i Atlas kind of sent me down this rabbit trail. You can see how things can happen like that. But I just wanted to mention it. I thought you guys would appreciate that, and I thought this John 8 reference here was really interesting. You are not yet 50 years old. So why would they say that if he was 33 or 32 or whatever? All right, so let's keep going here. We've got more to talk about, and digital ID is always front and center around here. We talk about it a lot, not just digital ID, but where all of that's going. Catherine Austin Fitts on digital ID. That is a coup d'etat. That is the end of human liberty in the West, quote unquote. You don't get your VAXX this month, they're going to turn off your money. So Catherine Austin Fitts, once again, another really great interview here. And I feel like she is one of the better folks out there that has their finger on the pulse of where things are going with the whole monetary system, digital monetary system. Ex-investment banker Catherine Austin Fitts, digital ID, once connected to AI and CBDCs, enables authorities to monitor and control every aspect of human behavior. If I can track you closely, then where you're going and what you're doing, I can get you on programmable money, which can be turned on and off. Then I can start to use AI and surveillance systems and algorithms to basically manage and control your behavior. So if I want you in a 15-minute city, your money won't work beyond the 15 minutes unless you do what I say. Yeah, see how that works? If it's digital money and you leave the control grid, the geofencing location, your money switches off and it no longer is any good. Isn't that nice? So that's what we're talking about, is building a system that will allow you to be surveilled and tracked and turn your money off and on, or incentivize you or penalize you in a variety of ways with your money that can be integrated with your behavior. Yeah, it's a social credit score system that we talk about a lot on this show. When you integrate AI with a digital ID and programmable money, then you're talking about complete control. Like, you don't get your VAXX this month, we're going to shut your money off. That would be called the Mark of the Beast system, wouldn't it? Anyway, there's more here and a couple of videos embedded. This is on Exposing the Darkness, which is Lioness of Judah's Substack, which we'll link to in the Diamond Disc Substack this week. This is one that I've mentioned quite a few times as well. The Wise Wolf, which is a different Substack. Caution, a dystopian morning in 2035. They warned us 2,000 years ago. We're building it anyway. Yeah, it's the dystopian future. The ceiling camera's gentle green light pulses awake before you do. It knows your REM cycles better than you know your own name. Good morning, Citizen 74492B. The Central Harmony AI coos through speakers embedded in your pillow. The voice sounds like your mother or what you remember of mothers before the familial restructuring initiative. Your wellness score today is 847. You remain a valued community participant. Relief floods warm through your chest. 847. Still safe. Still fed. You sit up and the wall screen activates, displaying your daily contribution metrics in soothing pastels. The apartment's 9 cameras track your movement from bed to bathroom. This is freedom. They taught you in mandatory appreciation sessions. This is safety. This is love. The bathroom mirror isn't a mirror anymore. It's an assessment panel. Your face appears analyzed, cross-referenced. Your biometrics uploaded before you finished yawning. Skin conductivity, pupil dilation, micro expressions that might indicate disharmonious thought patterns. Read pre-crime. I'm adding that. A yellow warning flashes. Cortisol elevated, possibly negativity event. You weren't even aware you've been thinking about anything, but the implant behind your left ear knows better. It always knows better. The warning escalates to orange, and you feel the familiar click as the auto-injector port on your forearm comes alive. We've detected potential wellness concerns, the AI whispers. Would you like a serenity adjustment? It's not really a question. The orange warning means you have 30 seconds to verbally consent before the system interprets your silence as consent anyway. This is choice, they say. This is autonomy. Yes, thank you, you hear yourself say. You've learned the words. Everyone learns the words. 10 milligrams of compliance compound 7 hits your bloodstream. The world goes soft at the edges. Much better. Much safer. See where we're headed, you guys? And I just read the first part of this. Isn't that scary as Hades? And it goes on. And this is really well written. There's more here. It sounds like it's worse than 1984. Anyway, I thought that was really, really interesting. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but yeah, it's a dystopian morning in 2035. I'm not sure we're even that far away, you guys. But that is a Wise Wolf Media Substack post. Another really good one. So again, we'll link to this in the Diamond Disc Substack as well. I would mention, too, that if you happen to get your camera out and scan the old QR code up there in the upper left corner, that right now is set to my Subscribe Star. So let me go ahead and swap that and switch it over to Substack. Might see a slight little change in the QR code. Yeah, now if you scan it, it will take you to my Substack, so you can sign up for free. Anyway, thought that was pretty wild, and yes, the dystopian morning of 2035, do not sign me up. I want no part of that. All right, so if you were wondering if we are in the end times, this article might help to convince you that we might very well be. I think we are. 2 children, ages 9 and 10, charged with attempted murder, rape, in a brutal attack on a 5-year-old little girl. They tried to scalp her. Scalp her. Where are the parents? Cleveland, Ohio, 2 children ages 9 and 10 are facing several serious charges, including attempted murder and rape. Rape. 9 and 10. After prosecutors say they brutally attacked a 5-year-old girl in Cleveland. According to Cuyahoga County prosecutors, 2 children have been charged in connection with the assault that occurred last month. Prosecutors say the 9-year-old boy and 10-year-old girl are facing initial charges of attempted murder, rape, felonious assault, and kidnapping and strangulation. So it just gets better, doesn't it? The victim's mother said she dropped her daughter off at a family member's home in Cleveland. Somehow the 5-year-old walked out the front door and was allegedly badly beaten by a group of kids outside. So says, what I saw was unbelievable. My daughter was not my daughter. Her hair was scalped from her head. She had bruises and blood all over her body. Her eyes were filled with blood. Her lips and mouth were filled with blood. Her nails had debris and dirt stuck in them. Could you imagine? So, little kids doing this to other little kids. Are we not in the end times? Wow. That is a local news type of story here, Cleveland, Ohio. That's some scary stuff. Man, very sad. I thought I would mention this one too, just because it is not a surprise. Governor Gavin Newsom signs a landmark bill to counter anti-Semitism. Oh boy. You can tell that those people in that little country over there are rubbing their hands together just like this. A bill to counter anti-Semitism in California K-12 schools. Today, meaning October 7th, Governor Newsom signed Assembly Bill 715 into law, groundbreaking legislation to counter anti-Semitism in California's K-12 public schools. Because that is the main problem happening, apparently, in California schools. Yeah. Legislation makes California the first state in the nation to establish a statewide anti-Semitism prevention coordinator. How about that gig? Creates an office of civil rights to house the coordinator and adopts comprehensive safeguards for Jewish students facing anti-Semitism in the classroom. But only Jewish students. No one else. And then it says here, today's a historic day for California's Jewish community and for every child who has ever felt unsafe, unseen, or unwelcome at school, unless you're not Jewish. I might add that. So anyway, it goes on and on. Do we really need to have an anti-Semitism bill for K-12 schools? K-12 kids in schools? Well, apparently they think we do. So more about the wonderful, soon-to-be, shall we say, people in charge of the one world religion. Yeah. BlackRock CEO Larry the Fink declares tokenization of all assets era has begun. Yeah, well, he heads up BlackRock, so unfortunately I think he probably knows what he's talking about. Larry the Fink stated the financial industry is at the beginning of the tokenization of all assets during an October 14th interview on Squawk on the Street, I guess is a TV show. The comment came as the firm's Bitcoin ETF surpassed 100 billion in assets. Anyway, I only pulled this up because, yeah, he's saying tokenization of all assets. So basically anything and everything is going to be digitized and put on the blockchain. He's saying it started. And that is the head of BlackRock. Wow. All right, speaking of that tiny nation over there in the Middle East, Trump suggests one of his biggest donors cares more about Israel than the U.S. He suggests it. I would say it's a foregone conclusion. Trump on Monday suggested that Miriam Adelson, one of his biggest donors during the 2024 campaign, loves Israel more than the United States. Yeah, he said it jokingly, but he's actually 100% telling the truth. This is his quote. "I'm going to get her in trouble with this one, but I actually asked her once, so Miriam, I know you love Israel. What do you love more, Israel or the United States or Israel?" She refused to answer. That might mean Israel, the president said. I think that 100% is what that means, don't you? Israel first. Make Israel great again. Miriam and Sheldon Adelson. So, yeah. Just thought you'd like to know about that one. News.antiwar.com is the website. And speaking of anti-Semitism, and this is a tweet that I happened across earlier today and thought it was ridiculous. I'm one, as you guys know, that, and some of you guys are as well, people involved in music, like I know Marty is and others. I'm one that certainly appreciates a really good song, especially a good cover song of something that we're already aware of, a song that we already know. Trump's current and former U.S. ambassadors to Israel, Mike Huckabee and David Friedman, note the name, performed a rendition of Sweet Home Alabama in Israel and retitled it Sweet Home Yerushalayim. The lyrics were changed to push for greater Israel. And then this person says, please forgive me for posting this. Yes, because it's so terrible. And you may or may not know, I'm involved in music. I do music business as my full-time job. I couldn't make it in the podcasting world, but I could make it in the music business world. That's what I do full-time. Podcasting is my hobby. Unlike many people, it would be the reverse. You'd be doing something else and music would be the hobby. Well, for me, I know good music when I hear it, and this is not it. Sweet Home Yerushalayim. It's a cover song of Sweet Home Alabama, which is a great song. Yeah. So Huckabee and David Friedman, and I don't know who's singing. I know it's not Huckabee. Huckabee's playing the bass. Whoever's singing cannot sing, so that makes it way worse. But now they've dubbed in the Israeli lyrics on a classic Americana song, Sweet Home Alabama. So I just thought it was very sad and also kind of funny at the same time. But it is where we are, isn't it? Clown world. Anyway, that is on X. That's a post on X. I'll link to that in the Substack post. Trump thanked Jared Kushner for influencing his daughter's conversion from Christianity to Judaism. Yes, he told Jared Kushner, thanks for doing that. Thanks for converting my daughter. Isn't that lovely? It shows you exactly Trump knows absolutely nothing about Judaism or Christianity if he's thanking this guy for converting his daughter, making her not a Christian anymore. So there you go. Take that for what it's worth. And then let's see here. We mentioned the hostages were probably going to be released, and indeed they were. Hamas releases 20 remaining living Israeli hostages after 2 years in Gaza. So that's good. I'm glad they got to go home to their families, which is pretty amazing. But none of them look very bad. I don't know if you saw them. Group handed over to Red Cross as Israeli ministers approve list of more than 1,700 Palestinians for release. I wonder how they looked. I never saw any pictures of the 1,700 Palestinians who were released. Did you? I wonder if they released all of them. All 20 remaining living Israeli hostages have been released by Hamas after more than 2 years in captivity in Gaza. This article, by the way, is on The Guardian. Parents were reunited with sons and children with fathers as those held were handed over to the Red Cross before finally rejoining their families with the help of the Israeli army. Even before their release, Hamas had allowed some of the hostages to make video calls home on Monday morning. Because I guess they were keeping them, but it seems like they were treating them pretty well. Emotional footage was shared by Israeli broadcasters to an estimated 65,000 people gathered in front of large screens on Hostages Square in Tel Aviv, and to millions more watching the coverage at home. So then it talks about some of the more personalized stories in some of the hostages in particular who were released. So that's good. I'm glad they were released, and I'm glad they were unharmed. But it remains to be seen what happens with the, quote, ceasefire. I don't think it's going anywhere. Speaking of which, Hamas executes 33, there's that number again, Palestinians in Gaza streets after U.S. brokered ceasefire. So here we go again. Not only are they killing people right away, but we're throwing the 33s around again. Hamas has carried out public executions of at least 33 Palestinians in Gaza, accused of collaborating with Israel or ties to rival groups. They began immediately after the U.S. brokered ceasefire and hostage prisoner exchange. So they're saying Hamas is executing their own people. So whatever you want to take on that one, I'm not sure that we really know the details, and it may or may not be true. Who knows? This is just what Israel's been reporting on. Of course, that gives them an excuse to break the ceasefire and go back in and start shooting people. I don't know. All right, another China story. I thought this one was kind of interesting. We were talking about the social credit score a little while ago when we were mentioning the Catherine Austin Fitts piece that we talked about a little while ago. Deleted, not broke. In China, Thousands of young people are homeless, not for lack of money, but because the social credit system erased them. Every move, word, and purchase is scored. Blacklisted. Your WeChat Pay dies, your salary stops, you can't buy food or a train ticket, digitally dead. They sleep on streets, shamed by apps exposing their debts, quote unquote. No crime, just a low score. This isn't sci-fi. This is China, 2025. Now the world's pushing digital IDs and CBDCs, tying your life to a single digital score. One glitch, one dissent, and you're cut off. China's dystopia is a warning. When tech tracks and controls how long until you are deleted. They didn't go broke. You can see some of these people just sleeping on the streets. That's literally all they have. The clothes on their back and maybe a mat to sleep on. That's it. Social credit scores gone wrong for these folks. Yeah, and this is just a small sampling here. So anyway, as far as the number of people. So that's an X post. And then I wanted to mention this just because we've got Halloween coming up. Satanism. Russian lawmaker calls for Halloween ban. I thought this was kind of interesting. Imagine if they tried that in the United States. I think people would be more outraged if Halloween got banned than Christmas. What do you think? Celebrating the holiday should be outlawed as it undermines traditional values, according to Mikhail Ivanov. Halloween should be banned in Russia, according to a lawmaker in the Bryansk region who associates it with Satanism, which of course it is, which is illegal in the country. Speaking to news outlet Gazeta.ru, Mikhail Ivanov, who is also the head of the organization Orthodox Russia, described Halloween as a Western holiday that is alien to Russian culture and its spiritual foundations, claiming it is being forcefully imposed on society. So I'm not sure how that works. He argued that the symbolism associated with Halloween is linked with evil spirits and darkness and has had a destructive influence on the fragile psyche of the younger generation. Celebration undermines Russia's traditional values, promotes occultism, and contradicts the fundamental moral values on which our country has been built for centuries. So, I mean, I think those are good points. I don't really argue that any of that. And I can see where he's coming from on this. So let me know your thoughts about this. They're thinking of banning, according to this guy, Halloween in Russia. Of course, that'll probably never happen. It's just one person going for that, but it is pretty interesting. And yeah, we all know the roots of where it came from. So Canada is a lost cause, I guess. This is further proof. A Canadian teacher has now asked parents not to pack pork in kids' lunches to avoid offending some students. I wonder which some students they mean. So, not just Muslims either, I'm guessing. And that's a large part of it. So some of the comments here are what's funny. I won't bother reading them, but you can imagine. Canadian teacher asking parents not to pack pork in kids' lunches to avoid offending some students. Canada is lost. Transgender student numbers plunge as radical gender ideology fad implodes. So I thought this was pretty interesting and really good news if true. The transgender and gender identity wave among young Americans is collapsing, with identification plummeting since its peak in 2023, according to a new report from the Center for Heterodox Social Science. I don't know why that has to exist, but it does. The number of students claiming to be transgender has now halved, as in cut in half. Experts believe that radical gender ideology has now simply gone out of fashion among young people. Professor Eric Kaufman, reports author and University of Buckingham politics scholar, analyzed major surveys, including the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expressions called FIRE in a massive 2025 poll of 68,510 students. Trans identification is in free fall amongst the young. I think that's really good news, don't you? One more from Slay News. Klaus Schwab, World Economic Forum, the new fascism. Wonder what they're going to call the new fascism. Since founding the WEF in 1971, Klaus has grown the organization into arguably the most powerful entity on the planet. Yes, and who heads up the World Economic Forum? It's not Klaus Schwab. Who is above Klaus Schwab? That would be King Charles III. Yet most of the world's population has never even heard of Klaus Schwab or the WEF, despite the group's influence over global nations' elected leaders, according to a two-part report from the Daily Wire. Schwab, the WEF's founder and sole chairman, is the original international man of mystery. Oh, so it's not Austin Powers, I guess. Despite Schwab openly gloating that he has world leaders in his pockets, or that he instructs presidents and prime ministers on his agenda for their countries, very little is known about him. Basic information is available. He was born in Ravensburg, Germany, 1938, but almost nothing about the man behind the facts. Well, he is I'm just adding here a side note here. He is apparently has been knighted by King Charles. So, according to many reports. So anyway, there's more information here about Klaus Schwab. I was looking to see what they're calling the new fascism, but that would probably be, I'm guessing, populism. That's what they hate, which is everything that Donald Trump represents, at least on the surface. So anyway, there's more info here about old Klaus Schwab. All right, and then got a few from WNG.org. Speaking of knighting, here's the English king. The English king and the Pope plan a joint prayer in the first since Reformation. Pope Leo XIV will receive King Charles III and Camilla at the Vatican next week, which is this coming week, in what's planned to be a key moment for the historically rocky Anglican and Catholic relations. The royal couple will visit next Thursday in honor of the Roman Catholic Church's Jubilee year. The trio will attend a service at the Sistine Chapel, marking the first time since the 16th century Protestant Reformation that a reigning British monarch will pray with the Pope publicly. So look for those pictures this coming week. The Pope and King Charles III praying together. Who will they be praying to? That's my question. Because I don't think it is the God of the Bible or Jesus Christ. Do you? Charles's mother, Queen Elizabeth II, made history in 1961 as the first reigning British monarch to formally visit the Vatican. Since the Reformation, Britain formally split from the Catholic Church when King Henry VIII formed the Church of England in 1534, declaring himself the supreme head of the church. Because if you're king, you can do that, but we're protesting no kings. So figure that one out. As king, Charles holds the same title today, making his upcoming visit one of both church and state. What else is planned for the visit? Charles and Camilla will meet the American-born Pope for the first time at the Pope's official residence in the historic Apostolic Palace, according to the palace. The preceding ecumenical service in the Sistine Chapel will center on caring for creation and reflect on Charles's and Leo's shared commitment to natural preservation. Wow. I wonder if they're going to talk about the coming one world religion. Caring for the environment. That's, other than Satan himself, that's Charles's other god. The creation, not the creator. Charles and Camilla will also visit the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls, where the king will receive the title of Royal Confrater of St. Paul. A symbol of spiritual fellowship. Charles will attend a reception at the Pontifical Beta College Seminary for Priests, and Camilla will meet with Catholic sisters who work at a global grassroots level to combat violence against women and girls. Okay. Pretty interesting. So they're going to bestow another title on King Charles, the Royal Confrater, I guess, of St. Paul. Okay. That's where we are. So anyways, let's go ahead and keep moving here. We've got a few more articles to look at yet tonight. Zelensky, Trump discuss weapons and strategies at meeting. Yeah, so this just happened. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, which he's not actually, he's a dictator. He's literally not the president anymore because his term ran out in May last year. Met with Trump at the White House on Friday. The two spoke with each other in the press at a working lunch. Yeah, it was very awkward. I saw pieces of it. Zelensky opened by congratulating Trump on his successful peace initiatives in the Middle East and said they provided momentum for an end to the Russia-Ukraine war, which Zelensky does not want, by the way. He wants it to go on forever. He highlighted Ukraine's need for security guarantees from other countries, while NATO allies were Ukraine's best defense. Weapons were also very important, he said. I wonder why. Trump talked about helping Zelensky with new capabilities for striking deeper into Russia. Such a move would be an escalation, he acknowledged. Trump also said he'd be open to trading Tomahawk cruise missiles for thousands of Ukrainian-made drones. However, he repeatedly said he hoped Ukraine wouldn't need the Tomahawks to end the war, and that the United States also needed those. Yeah. So I vote personally that we give them nothing and no money. How about you guys? Trump's upcoming meeting with Putin in Budapest would not include Zelensky, but Trump said he still planned to mediate between the two. The U.S. president said he had concerns that Putin was playing for time, but believed Putin wanted to make a deal. I'm not so sure he does, because they're winning. Why would he want to make a deal? Yes, he doesn't want to keep seeing all these people being killed, being slaughtered every day over there, but I mean, they're winning the war. Trump wouldn't say whether the deal should include territorial concessions on Ukraine's part. So yeah, he's kind of waffled back and forth a little bit on all of that, saying that yes, they need to let those territories go, and then later on following up by saying, I think you can get back all of your land, and then now not talking about it at all. So, take it for what it's worth. I don't know that Trump knows what he's doing in this whole thing, and I'm glad that he and Putin are communicating, unlike Biden and Putin. Never communicated one time, which Biden wasn't controlling anything anyway, so it didn't matter. But the point is though, that Putin never talked to anybody as far as the American government goes during that whole Biden crisis. So at least there is some communication going on. I don't personally believe Putin wants to kill us all, but I do think he will protect Russia at all costs. So we'll see what happens. Unfortunately, I do think Trump is dumb enough to fall for handing Tomahawks over to Ukraine. But of course, if that happens, it's the Americans who would be running it anyways. So now you have direct confrontation of America shooting missiles into Russia proper. That is not good, and that won't end well. All right, and then one more from WNG. Former Trump advisor Bolton pleads not guilty to leaking secrets. So once again, we're in this high-tech world that we live in. We're still relegated to having drawings of what happens in court appearances. I say, televise them all. We should be able to see what's going on in stuff like this. This needs to be open to the public and not relying on drawings. What is this, kindergarten? Anyway, more about Bolton here. I don't really want to get more into that, but we talked about that earlier tonight. This is further information on Bolton, and we know he did what he did. You've got jail. So we'll see if Bolton actually ends up anywhere like that My guess is he probably won't, but we'll see. All right, Leo Hohmann's stories for tonight. We have the weekly roundup, another escalation in Ukraine, China unveils secret weapon against U.S. fighter jets, silver vaults running dry. I've heard that from other sources too. Trump authorizes CIA covert operations in Venezuela, and study shows U.S. churchgoers are falling away from biblical faith. So I guess it depends on who you ask, because some people are saying that no, church attendance is up after the Charlie Kirk murder. So I don't know. Maybe it just depends on what part of the country you're in. I don't know. Trump on Thursday announced plans for a second summit with Putin, this time in Budapest. Let's hope it's more fruitful than the last one held in Alaska. Yeah. So that is on his Leo Hohmann's homepage there on his website. And then his Substack, Ukraine's strategy against Russia, escalate and provoke. Sending U.S. Tomahawks to Ukraine for use against Russia would be 2 steps up the escalation ladder in a risky move. Yeah, to say the least. And again, the Ukrainians are not capable of flying those Tomahawk missiles. They would have to be flown 100% using American technology, which then means it is the U.S. striking deep inside Russia, not Ukraine. There's no proxy involved at that point. So that is seriously bad news. If full-blown economic warfare breaks out between the U.S. and China, which country is better positioned to survive and for how long? So that's another one. And then one more from Leo's Substack. A move is afoot to repeal the Real ID Act of 2005. But the real power lies with the people. So, yeah. You guys have a Real ID driver's license? I do not, and I don't intend to get one. So that is on Leo's Substack. I thought this one was pretty interesting. Again, the timing is really suspicious to me. Zombie volcano in Iran showing new signs of activity 710,000 years after its last eruption. Now, how would that happen? Just by happenstance, at the exact moment in time, the exact moment in history, when Israel is trying to pick a war, trying to start a war, pick a fight with Iran, and now guess what? There's a volcano that's been dormant for 700,000 years that just happens to be coming to life right now. And don't think that that technology doesn't exist, because it does exist. Yeah, it has to do with frequency, especially. The Taftan, T-A-F-T-A-N, the Taftan volcano, previously thought to be extinct, has been reclassified as dormant and potentially hazardous after showing new signs of activity. Scientific data revealed a significant ground uplift of 3.5 inches at the summit over 10 months, indicating pressure is building from hot fluids, gases, or magma beneath the surface. The volcano is emitting large quantities of toxic gases, including an average of 20 tons of sulfur dioxide per day, further signaling renewed internal activity. Researchers have issued a wake-up call for authorities to increase monitoring and reassess hazards, not just for Taftan, but for the entire volcanic arc in the region. Some of it you could maybe attribute to the warming planet, the meltdown, as Mr. Dane talks about, but I don't know. This seems awfully suspicious to me as far as the location of this particular one. While scientists state there is no reason to fear an imminent eruption, a significant event could threaten the provincial capital of Zayandan and disrupt the economy, agriculture, and air travel. A volcano in southeastern Iran, that's where it is, long believed to be extinct, is showing disturbing signs of life. So yeah, pretty wild. That one's on Natural News. All right, and then the most recent Wine Press Substack articles, OpenAI to allow AI erotica and PORN for ChatGPT. Altman says, we are not the elected moral police of the world. So that makes it okay, I guess. This contradicts what he said just 2 months ago, where he said he was proud that he did not add a sex bot to ChatGPT. Well, I guess he's changing his mind. He saw the dollars. He saw the dollar signs and has now changed his mind. California becomes first state to ban ultra-processed foods in schools, but it will take a decade for full implementation. A decade. But note, it won't take that long to have anti-Semitism laws implemented across the board. No, not a decade. That's right away. So we know where the priorities lie. Do we not? Anyway, there's several more interesting articles on the Wine Press's Substack. It's always good. Let's see. Gateway Pundit top headlines. I thought I would just kind of peruse the headlines. This one's weird. Texas woman sees a parachute above her farm, ends up finding missing NASA equipment on her farm. So weird. Let's see. Looking to see what else. Oh, yeah. This one. I pulled this one up. Well-known prime minister, quote unquote, beat and raped late Epstein victim Virginia Giuffre, according to her memoir. Giuffre did not name her attacker in the book, but she did in many judicial filings. Yes, this prime minister, who is well known, is from a little country in the Middle East that we have talked about many times tonight. And yes, this is the book here, Nobody's Girl. Giuffre writes that she was bloodied, beaten, and raped by a well-known prime minister in a series of brutal encounters. So could you imagine? In her posthumous memoir, Nobody's Girl, a memoir of surviving abuse and fighting for justice, Giuffre recalled begging Epstein to step in after the unnamed politician, which we know who it is, Prime Minister so-and-so from such and such, forced her to beg for her life. But the pedophile coldly told her it was simply part of her job. After the attack, I couldn't stay a fool. Having been treated so brutally and then seeing Epstein's callous reaction to how terrorized I felt, I had to accept that Epstein meted out praise merely as a manipulation to keep me subservient, Giuffre wrote. Wow. So very sad. But right here, I was wondering if it mentioned him. Israel's Prime Minister Ehud Barak, which I'm not sure if he's still around or not. He might be. So that is the person that seems to be who she is talking about. And the only prime minister that I have noticed that she's mentioned in her, not just in the stories about her, but just in connection with Epstein. So that one's on the Gateway Pundit. Pretty interesting. A couple InfoWars articles. Zelensky admits he has failed to secure tomahawks from Trump. So, mentioned this a little bit ago. Ukraine has failed to secure approval to receive Tomahawk long-range missiles from Washington, as various reports have made clear over the weekend in wake of Zelensky's Friday meeting with Trump at the White House. Trump has given a strong hint on where he stands when just before the two leaders' working lunch, when he declared he wants to resolve the war without thinking about tomahawks, and additionally, that the weapon is one that America needs. I wonder why we need it. Is somebody going to be attacking us? Maybe so. I don't know. Tomahawks, by the way, can be armed as nuclear. They can be nuclear tipped. So that's why, a launch of Tomahawk missiles deep inside Russia is going to result in some sort of nuclear exchange. For sure. Guaranteed. Because Russia won't know if those Tomahawks heading towards them are nuclear tipped or not. So therefore, they have to launch. I mean, you can see where this is going. Really bad. Really fast. Netanyahu plans to seek another term. Yeah. Israel's longest-serving prime minister says he plans to win the 2026 parliamentary election, which means he will win. There's no question. Israel's longest-serving prime minister says he'll seek another term. So more of the ongoing evil, I guess. That's not going to be changing anytime soon at all. The polarizing leader of the right-wing Likud party served as prime minister from 1996 to 1999 and 2009 to 21. He returned to office in December 2022 following the collapse of the ruling coalition. Yeah, and he's been back in power since then. Anyways, so we'll see where it goes, but Netanyahu ain't going nowhere, doesn't look like. All right, some of the Not the Bee articles I pulled up for tonight. Secret Service discover hunting stand, like a deer hunting stand, with clear line of sight to Air Force One's exit ramp in Palm Beach. So they have a hunting stand that has a clear line of sight to where the airplane unloads Trump. Hunting stand appears to have been set up months ago. So how about that? Secret Service is working with both FBI and Palm Beach County authorities to investigate who set it up and why. One of the two men who have tried to kill Trump in the past year, Ryan Ruth, was convicted just weeks ago for trying to assassinate him. Outside Trump's golf course, there is no forested area around the airport where hunting would be permitted if that was the purpose of the tree stand. So how about that? Local, state, and federal officials have heavily restricted hunting near airports. Yeah, gee, I wonder why. Because you might accidentally shoot planes. Although unconfirmed, anecdotal reports say the stand may have been in this patch of woods between the airport and Trump's golf course to the south. This circled area, I guess. To add credibility to this location, a 2017 video of Trump arriving to Palm Beach shows him just north of this terminal, which will be a clear line of sight from the patch of trees. Note the location of the buses in the photo. So I guess it's kind of from this shot that we're seeing. Yeah, clear line of sight. So how about that? A hunting stand found near Trump's, where the plane disembarks in Palm Beach. Crazy. Anyway, that one's on Not the Bee. The UN tried to enact a global tax on carbon. It would have passed if not for Trump. So this is something that, every now and then Trump does the right thing. And this would be one of those things. This past week, the UN, United Nations International Maritime Organization, so the IMO, held a vote to enact a global maritime carbon tax on all shipping vessels in the world. It would have been the first UN tax on member nations since the global body gave itself the power to tax the world in 2024. The IMO's carbon tax would force every seagoing vessel to buy carbon credits from the IMO in 2 tiers based on size and carbon output over the UN's yearly target levels, which is net zero by 2050, by the way. Ain't gonna happen. Neither one of those things, net zero or 2050. 2050 or net zero, neither will happen, I think. Tier 1 carbon credits were to sell at $100 per tons of CO2 equivalent. And that was Tier 1. And Tier 2 at $380 per. The U.S. Department of State estimated that the global tax would raise prices on Americans by about 10%. On top of that, the tax would be enforced by member nations inspecting other nations' ships at ports. So they're going to have the shipping nations would be policing each other. That does not sound good. If they say the ships were producing more carbon than allowed, they would collect the tax, and if it wasn't paid, they would have the authority to impound the ship. What could possibly go wrong? Captain Jack says. So the UN wanted to raise the money to first cover the funding President Trump pulled to keep paying for the rising global empire, and they planned on redistributing the rest to all the developing nations of the world, essentially buying their votes for the UN. Of course, Trump was not about to let any of this happen, and his administration announced the following fallout for any nation that helped pass or tried to enforce this ridiculous global tax. Needless to say, the 2 days of that announcement, what seemed like a sure yes vote turned into a sure no vote. We were talking about the No Kings at the beginning of this show tonight. This one's pretty funny. Not the B article again. No King's website gives protesters anti-Trump chants with improper grammar. So, they don't know how to correctly speak. But that's not really that surprising, is it? Looking to see if... here it is. So, per the No King's website, here's a couple of the chants that they will be yelling at their protests. And note the misuse of your. Trump, your kingdom must come down. Trump, your kingdom must come down. Oh, I heard the voice of the people say, Trump, your kingdom must come down. It's Y-O-U-R, not apostrophe R-E. Hatred, your kingdom must come down. Racism, your kingdom must come down. Poverty, your kingdom must come down. Greed, your kingdom must come down. No Kings also has a chant saying billionaires need to go, which seems a little ambiguous and mostly peaceful to the ear. So they've got their yours all messed up. Those far-left teachers unions have really failed the kids they're recruiting to write their protest materials. Yeah. But and then they apparently don't run any sort of checks on those once they're finished having the kids write their chants. Anyway, pretty wild. That's a Not the B article. And then this one, Don Lemon, urging non-white Americans to buy guns to confront federal immigration agents. Is Don Lemon actively trying to get federal agents shot? You be the judge. Sound like it to me. I don't know if you guys heard this. And then talking about what Lemon said, and then the answer to that in this article says, so first of all, ICE isn't rounding up Americans, which is what I said. They're rounding up foreigners who broke U.S. immigration law and have deportation orders or criminal warrants signed by judges. The agents are merely enforcing the existing laws in partnership with the judiciary that the U.S. has had for decades. Yeah, and note, too, that they still haven't reached the numbers of people, detainees, illegals, that were deported that even Barack Obama did. So he sent more out than have been sent out so far. I mean, I think they'll get to that point and past that point at some point, but who knows when. So yes, Don Lemon is calling for non-white Americans to buy guns and confront ICE officers. That's what it sounds like to me, and I'm sure many of you as well. That's on Not the Beat. All right, and then vaccine impact. Let's see. I looked at these earlier. Life without the internet. One country lost their internet cable to the world, and life reverted back to 1880 standards. That's one of the articles. So that sounds kind of interesting. New cyber attack threatens to bring down U.S. government and corporate America's networks. That's another one. And then, who are the Israel of God? No prophet is accepted in his hometown. So that is a third article on vaccineimpact.com. So feel free to have a look there. GeoWatch for this week. We have billionaires preparing for doomsday. Billionaires are preparing themselves for doomsday. Should we be worried? That's a BBC headline. Are tech billionaires really preparing for the end of the world? That's another headline from Newsbreak. Earth's life support is failing. Will we act? That is a Eco Business headline. As gold hits new records, some see warning signs of civilization collapse. That is a Newsweek headline. How many are still clinging to the delusion that shiny metals will save them from what is unfolding, fully exposing and halting the global climate engineering and weather warfare assault and the ubiquitous contamination it is causing is our only chance of buying time at this late hour. Yep, and then Global Alert News is embedded here, and then it's also available on, I don't think I've mentioned this in a while, it's also available on Spotify. If you happen to be a Spotify subscriber, free or not, you can find Dane's weekly show, Global Alert News, on Spotify. I put it on there myself every single week. So feel free to check that out, and then also geoengineeringwatch.org as well. Make sure you're on our email list. And then the scheduled weather for this week, again, it's looking like it does very often, where we have a split somewhere. It's not always right down the middle, but in this case we have temperatures out west below normal, but pretty much above normal everywhere else, more or less. So this is dated October 25 to October 29. So coming up, it's going to be warming up again. Today, it was a little cooler here, at least this evening. It's been cooler here where I am. Cooler than normal. It feels a little more like October, actually, around here. All right, and then climateandeconomy.com, October 18th, roundup of climate news. I usually mention these just because they're very similar. Some of them are the same articles that Mr. Dane talks about in his Global Alert News each week. So you guys can kind of more or less follow along in some way just by going to climateandeconomy.com, because a lot of these articles are ones that Dane mentions in the broadcast. So, yeah. Recent trends in sea surface temperature show warming around the perimeter of the Arctic Ocean in October. So anyway, there's a lot here about flooding and drought and all of the result of the geoengineering programs, the ongoing geoengineering programs globally. So there's a lot of headlines here that you won't see in the mainstream. At least not very many. So lots of flooding, looks like. Seems to be one of the main themes here I'm seeing. So anyway, yeah, climateandeconomy.com is where that is. And then I mentioned Andrew. He's still Prince Andrew, believe it or not. He gives up his royal titles, but he's still Prince. So figure that one out. I don't know. Prince Andrew gives up royal titles, including Duke of York. So he's no longer the Duke of York. We have concluded the continued accusations about me distract from the work of His Majesty and the royal family. So the soon-to-be biblical Antichrist has told his brother, no can do anymore, because he got caught. Of course, the king hasn't been dumb enough to get caught yet. Not saying he's innocent, I'm just saying he hasn't been dumb enough to get caught yet. That's what it looks like to me anyway. Anyway, that is a YouTube video, and we'll link to this in the Substack post, but it's just a couple minutes long. And it's just talking about some of the stuff that Prince Andrew is no longer going to be taking part in. Kind of interesting. Hamas breaks ceasefire, attacking Israeli forces in Gaza. I thought this picture was kind of interesting just because you do see there are some buildings still standing. I think those are the first buildings that I've seen where they haven't been blown apart. This is Hamad City in the southern Gaza Strip, September 4th. So as of September 4th, these buildings back here were still there. So I don't know. All right. So this is the last major article here tonight, and this one is a weird one. Rare whale shark. You guys have probably seen some of these whale sharks. Maybe, I don't know if you've ever been in a major aquarium. Like I know I've seen one, I think in Atlanta years ago. So rare whale shark symbolizing major stage in Messiah killed in Gaza. So they're blaming the Gazans. You know, they starve the people out of existence in Gaza. And then when a rather large fish shows up near the edge of the water or on the beach, I'm not sure if it was beached or what, and then the people start killing it. I don't know if it was already dead or not, but they start dragging it ashore, then they get the blame. But this whole thing about the whale shark in the Mediterranean is really strange, because I don't think I knew that they were in the Mediterranean. It says a whale shark that had captivated marine researchers and beachgoers along Israel's Mediterranean coast for several weeks has died off the coast of Gaza, according to the environmental conservation organization Sharks in Israel. So how about that for the name of an organization in Israel? There's actually a company or organization called Sharks in Israel. The massive fish, nicknamed Ofek, O-F-E-K, by conservationists, was filmed being dragged ashore by crowds in the Khan Yunis area on Friday. Let me look at this. Yeah, that is where this is, actually. Not too far from this right here. The Khan Yunis area in the southern Gaza Strip. The video footage circulating on social media shows Palestinians pulling the enormous creature onto the beach with ropes. Yeah, they're probably going to eat it, that's my guess. Again, they're starving, many of them. According to reports from Gaza, the fish measured approximately 10 meters in length. His story is primarily a sad one, Sharks in Israel said in a statement. That's such a crazy name. He brought us joy for several weeks, kept beach managers on their toes, and reminded us that there's still much to learn and understanding in the Mediterranean. Whale shark had been spotted multiple times along Israel's coastline in recent weeks. So, talk about him where he was traveling and stuff. I don't know if he was tagged or not. Now here's the video of them pulling him up on the beach. Gazans tore apart a stranded whale on the beach. This is cruelty that knows no limits. But we didn't hear anything about it from Greta. Yeah. Well, anyway, I don't think they were necessarily just trying to be evil to the shark. My guess is they're trying to feed their families. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but that seems a little more believable. But what I was interested in here was, how in the world is that connected to what this article headline says, a major stage in Messiah? Because as you guys know, that's something I've been looking at for quite a while, quite a few years. What the connection is here with Israel and their Moshiach. So it says, talking about the Zohar, you guys know about the Zohar, an esoteric text attributed to 1st century Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, offers additional interpretation of what an increase in fish sightings might signify. According to this mystical work, talking about the Zohar, such appearances indicate a specific stage of the messianic process in which two separate redemptive phases, the Messiah of the house of Joseph and the Messiah from the house of David, begin to converge. The first phase, associated with Joseph, represents the practical rebuilding of the land of Israel through human effort. The second, linked to David, ushers in a miraculous period that includes the rebuilding of the temple. So they're kind of connecting all of this to the whale shark. And I don't know that having one whale shark show up really tells you this, but they are in this article. They're saying that perhaps an increase in fish sightings, which the whale shark would be part of that, could lead to the Messiah. And again, as I've said before, they have two Messiahs, and they're outlined here in this article. The one associated with the house of Joseph and the one associated with the house of David. The period marked by the appearance of fish is described as one of the Hamtaket Hadinim, a sweetening of divine judgments symbolized by the fish's ability in mystical terms to make seawater potable. How about that? So somehow the magical fish makes seawater drinkable. I don't know if I buy that. I don't think the whale shark was that smart, but it is interesting on what some of this article is talking about. And note, it is connecting it to the Zohar, which is one of those crazy, texts that they base everything on, including the Kabbalah and all that stuff. So anyway, I thought it was pretty interesting. I would just mention that the Messiah from the house of Joseph and the Messiah from the house of David, that's your two different Moshiachs, okay? And King Charles III has already, many years ago, proven his lineage as being connected to the house of David. So if he's going to be the biblical Antichrist, he fits the description of who could be the Moshiach coming from the house of David. Now, the other guy, Messiah from the house of Joseph, I don't know. That could possibly be the person that I've been talking about for years, which is the Yanuka, Rabbi Shlomo Yehuda Berry. Perhaps he is that guy. I don't know. But I do think it's a pretty darn good fit for Messiah from the house of David being King Charles, because King Charles III does have direct lineage back to David. It's something that's been talked about for a long time. And he supposedly has proof. I don't know. So anyway, that is another kind of weird one, but all from a whale shark. So figure that one out, you guys. I don't know. All right. Anyway, yeah, the Diamond Report on X is one of the best ways to follow along with what I'm doing. And then, of course, Substack, which is the QR code in the upper left corner up there. If you scan that, it will take you to this page, or you can just type it in. It is in that crawler down at the bottom down there, diamonddisc.substack.com. And Diamond Disc is that's the name of so many of my different channels and stuff. That's just my business name, Diamond Disc Audio. I mentioned before, I was in the music business, still am, and Diamond Disc Audio is my audio mixing and mastering service company. And I do have links for that website. I don't have it pulled up, but if you're interested in that kind of thing, that is something that you can contact me to do, and mixing various projects and mastering a lot of different projects during the course of each week. So anyway, that is an option. If you have friends in the music business, maybe pass along my information. I would certainly appreciate that. So yes, diamonddisc.substack.com is where the Diamond Report on Substack is. So that's an easy and quick way to go and sign up and drop your email address in. If you want to help out with what I'm doing, help me cover the cost of doing this show each week, there are some options here on Subscribestar, and that is subscribestar.com/diamonddisc. So you can find that and kind of comb through the different monthly options here. That is a recurring type of fee, so $5 a month and up. And thank you to the people who are helping me with that, because that really helps me be able to do this show. I've got 7 subscribers total on this platform, and then 7 more on Substack. So thank you to the 14 people who are helping me put this show together every week by helping pay for it. And thank you guys very much. I really appreciate your help. If anyone else wants to step up, those methods are certainly there through Substack and through Subscribestar. And then make sure you guys, if you're on the free side of things and don't have any money to contribute, that's totally fine, and I get it. But make sure you're subscribed on my other channels like Rumble and YouTube and the other ones, and we'll kind of go through those real quick. This is the main YouTube channel now, again, resurrected from the dead. We thought it was left for dead almost 5 years ago when YouTube took it away from me, but they have reinstated it back to me as of a few weeks ago. So thank you, Lord, that you helped me reconnect with these almost 27,000 people who are subscribed to this channel that I had no access to for upwards of 5 years. So they are combing people off of this channel all the time. They've taken off well over 400 people at this point, and I keep mentioning that just because this is what YouTube does. They play games all the time with channels, and I haven't done anything to warrant the fact that they are removing people from my channel, but they literally are, several a day, and quite a few during the course of a week. And again, I've lost about 400 subscribers just on this channel, but at least the channel is back where I can use it again, so I'm very thankful for that. So that is Diamond Disc on YouTube, and some of you guys may be on that channel now watching. And then this is the backup channel, which has been the main channel for the last 5 years. Take it to the Lord in prayer, end times, dates. So, and I would mention too, let me go to this page. This is the home page here. These Take It to the Lord in prayer, end times, dates videos go back to 2019, and I'm probably going to create a kind of a best of and do one video that kind of summarizes everything and republish and publish that new video to both of these channels. Take It to the Lord in prayer, end times, dates, as well as this Diamond Report channel on YouTube, and put it on Rumble and these other places as well. So be looking for that. That's something that I want to do and kind of do a summation as to where I think we are in the end times and what might be next. So be looking for that. That's something that I will do again when my voice is functioning 100% again. And make sure you follow along on these other platforms too, if you happen to be on them. And you can do so for free. Totally free to sign up, leave comments if you want. Diamond Disc again on all of these other platforms. DIAMONDISC. And it is Rumble, and we have BitChute, and we have Brighteon. So there you go. All of those different platforms. And then the band group, which is a free group. That's kind of like our social group here for the people who are involved in watching the Diamond Report and sending stuff to me so I can look at and maybe talk about on the show. So that's what the band group is about. band.us/at the Diamond Report. That's where it is. Over 100 members in that group. And we just talk about different things, and we can say prayers for each other, pray for different situations. We can share information as far as stories and videos and things like that. So I would just mention it's not a dating site. I always say that. But anyway, that is a Diamond Report on band. So thank you guys for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. And looking to see if we have any more videos left over. We got just a few minutes. I guess we could watch one more. Yeah, I got one more I could show here. So we'll do that. And we will close out for the night as my voice is trying to give out on me. But thank you guys for being here tonight. Keep the Lord Jesus front and center in your life. We don't know how much time we have. And, it is really interesting how things are unfolding week by week. And it's basically not at all what any of us expect the end times to look like. However, I'm seeing further and further proof every single week that we are indeed living in the end times. So blessings to you guys. I love you all, and make sure you subscribe on those other channels like I mentioned, and we will do it again next week, which will be, the 26th, October 26th. So yeah, we'll do it again then, starting at 10 p.m. Central Time, and we'll see you guys then. Hope you guys have a blessed week, and feel free to reach out by leaving comments on any of the videos, and we will talk to you guys later. Thanks so much.
9 at 6, a story you will only see on ABC 15 about a new FBI alert warning law enforcement about a legal loophole in gun sales.
If they have a visa, all they need is their ID, the hunting license, then they could come into a gun shop, they'd fill out the exact same form everyone else would, they'd undergo the exact same background check, but the FBI is worried that people who might become radicalized might use this legal loophole to take advantage of the situation and plot an attack.
Brown people of all stripes, whether you're an Indian American or a Mexican American or whoever you are, go out and get a gun legally, get a license to carry legally. Because when you have people knocking on your door and taking you away without due process as a citizen, isn't that what the Second Amendment was written for?
Now, Don Lemon, from his NGO funders, is given talking points. And I told you ahead of the No Kings, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, New World Order, Soros event this Saturday and this weekend, that they are turning up the heat absolutely massively.
No Kings, a declaration of independence against the tyranny, against lawlessness in the context that there was no rule of law. It was the rule of king. And I think increasingly people are waking up to the rule of law in this country, increasingly appearing to be the rule of Don.
Now, obviously, you have record levels of Hispanics and blacks voting for Republicans. They're not buying it.
This is what we're
You have a
talking
country
about.
that is falling apart. We had a housing crisis, a healthcare crisis, an education crisis, massive income and wealth inequality, a corrupt campaign finance system, and the media says, "Oh, you're going to run? What are you going to run for?" Nobody cares. So run what you want.
Nobody cares.
We have so many people here also that were fleeing dictatorships, socialism, etc. Myself, I mean, I came from Cuba when I was 6, fleeing communism, and you had a candidate that was to the left of Bernie Sanders, who is a self-proclaimed socialist. And so a lot of different factors, but a lot of them have to do, you know, the same factors, the economy, what's happening at the border, gas prices, our standing in the world, all of that. You know, Hispanic voters are going to be pretty much aligned with the rest of America.
But that doesn't mean the Democrats aren't trying to implement this. They've launched it. They fired the torpedoes. So they have implemented the Podesta plan. Everything else was a beta test, the Summer of Love 2020, all that.
But the No Kings protests are organized also by a group called Indivisible, which is founded by Ezra Levin and Leah Greenberg. They both authored a 23-page Google Doc called Practical Guide for Resisting the Trump Agenda. Some people online have claimed that they're communists, and guess, you'll never guess who donated. And I know they mention him, but $7,600,000 to that group is George Soros.
Are you happy about the ceasefire?
Honestly, I like protesting, so not really.
So why don't you protest for the Christians in Nigeria?
Oh, how much are they paying?
You can find upcoming meetings held by your representatives near you at indivisible.org. Join local resistance groups or organize one yourself. Start with groups related to issues that have motivated you to protest and follow up with organizers after the events to see how you can continue to support the efforts. This helps build solidarity.
And if you're at a black college, you better watch out because they're getting ready to false flag you.
I hope that Trump is serious enough to see this through and follow through, because the next thing that's going to happen, mark my words, an ICE agent is going to get shot and killed. There's going to be an explosion. There's going to be left-wing terrorism.
Well, they're already shooting up their vans and killing the illegals inside instead of the agents. They're already trying to kill agents.
Yes, and my point is, because you're right, it's happening. They're attacking the vehicles. The sniper shot at them. They're going to succeed. Somewhere out there's a left-wing nut job that saw Crooks and Tyler Robinson, and they're planning the next anti-Republican, anti-ICE attack. And then it's going to be on Trump. What are you going to do? Are you going to bring down the effing hammer on Antifa? Are you going to bring down the hammer on the Democrats? But it's going to come down to the men with guns, the men with the guns and the badges. Who are they personally loyal to? What is their interpretation? Who do they believe actually wields the real authority? That's the definition of a constitutional crisis. It's a definition of a political crisis. I don't think people realize the peril we're in, least of all the Democrats who keep pushing.
A month ago, 95% of the pieces were in. Now, there's one piece left, and it's false flags. That's it. And I said they're going to start hyping attacks on traditional black colleges. I said it 6 months ago, and a month ago they evacuated it when Charlie Kirk got killed and claimed his supporters were going to go blow it up. And they evacuated him nationwide. And of course, later they learned it was a false flag.
Democratic frontrunner Zohran Mamdani is facing growing scrutiny over his campaign finances. According to reports by right-wing media outlets, Mamdani's campaign accepted donations from foreign sources, which would be a direct violation of U.S. election law. The controversy comes just weeks before Election Day and has raised fresh questions about transparency, accountability, and the flow of money into American politics. Now, under U.S. election law, candidates are strictly prohibited from accepting campaign funds from non-U.S. citizens or foreign residents. Yet new findings suggest that Zohran Mamdani's mayoral campaign received nearly $13,000 from foreign donors, including a contribution from his mother-in-law in Dubai.
What happens if Mamdani wins? What happens to $700,000 above asking? Does that go to $1 million above asking?
It's going to keep going up. I mean, this is a great time to be a seller. That's my pitch today.
Gradually, America is waking up to calls to prayer and the smell of halal incense burning in the shadows of Lady Liberty. The Islamic invasion of America isn't some fever dream cooked up in a Bilderberg back room. It's now live and unfolding right now before your very eyes, block by block, mosque by mosque.
I find that there are only two things which are open to our movements: ballot or bullet, nothing in between.
I used to say that democracy is haram. Now I say participation in democracy is our jihad.
That's our jihad. We're going to fight not through the bullets, but the ballots.
Going to the ballot and voting is now an obligatory action, fard ayn, and it is a jihad that is now needs to be done because this is our modern jihad. You can elect a person who wants the Sharia.
Because in the United States, what we do know is that in the past election, just this last election, there have been over 800 Muslim candidates running for office.
We may end up with about 50 members of Congress in the next 6 years. That's really the essence of dismantling the system of injustice, is to replace it with the people who represent the Prophet ﷺ.
Approximately 71% of foreign-born Muslims arrived after 1990, with a significant surge after 2000. Over the last decade, from 2015 to 2025, U.S. immigration data indicates about 6.6 million total foreign-born arrivals since 2018, with Muslims making up a small but growing share, including roughly 3 million Muslim immigrants arriving between 2020 and 2025 amid global displacement, or the United Nations Replacement Migration Plan. Peel back the veil of multiculturalism and you'll see the blueprint laid bare in the unredacted files of the Muslim Brotherhood's explanatory memorandum, a 1991 roadmap to settle America through immigration, infiltration, and the slow boil of Sharia supremacy.
We do not want to melt into American society and disappear. We want to go into American society with Islamic ideals and revamp their thinking. We want to revamp them.
I am holding in my hand the Muslim Brotherhood Plan for North America, written in 5/22/1991. This is about their explanation on how they're going to take over the West, their 100-year plan to infiltrate and dominate the West and establish an Islamic government on earth. This plan was presented as evidence in the Holy Land Foundation trial, the largest terrorism trial ever in the history of the United States, where our government handed down 108 guilty verdicts to Muslim Americans and Muslim organizations in America, raising money in the United States and sending it overseas to support terrorist activity overseas. And it says the process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process with all the word means. The Ikhwan, which is the Arabic word for brothers, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers so that it is eliminated and Allah's religion is made victorious over all other religion.
The Founding Fathers didn't bleed at Bunker Hill for a demi-dystopia. Their numbers are small and will remain small for at least another decade. Don't believe their hype. Don't give in to the fear. God bless you and God save the Republic while we still can. John Bound reporting for InfoWars.